And we're on. Woo!
Welcome to the Unseen Room. Tonight we got a special guest with us. She's an author and speaker who travels the world exploring cemeteries while sharing what she learns by writing books, articles, leading some tours, and giving presentations. Her work's been featured by numerous media outlets like Coast to Coast AM, ABC, NBC, LifeHack, TimeOut Travel, and many more. She's also written dozens of best-selling books, including Understanding Cemetery Symbols and 6 Feet Under Texas. And she's got plenty of books on the way. Since 2014, she's sends out a newsletter that focuses on historic cemeteries, and not only do subscribers to the Cemetery News get a free book for signing up, but they learn about the tombstone symbols, unique burial practices, as well as the stories behind unusual graves around the world and other fascinating tidbits along the way. Please join me in welcoming Tui Snider to our show.
Yay! Welcome.
Good evening, Tui.
Good evening. Thanks for making me feel so
How
welcome.
are you doing?
I am good. I'm managing to. I've got 2 fans on me right now because it's, as we all know, here in Texas, it's been really
Brutal.
hot.
Brutal.
I stole a pair of my husband's reading glasses right before, and they're bothering me. But we'll see. They're not. They're a little too.
I know.
strong,
I have to.
I mean? I don't know.
There comes a time where you just got to do it.
I know. Well, I have mine. That his are just a little like woo. So if I'm taking them on and off, it's just because I'm getting dizzy.
Yeah. Mine are for reading purposes only.
Oh yeah, no, I have some really nice readers, and I don't know where I just sat them down right before I got here. So whatever. Oh well,
Maybe the cat has them.
It's a hazard. Yeah, she might. Who knows?
Well, I have glasses because I'm blind as a bat. If I don't have my glasses on, I can't see where the sidewalk meets the road. So I gotta wear them.
Ones you can wear all the time. I think it's when you have readers, you can constantly taking them on and off. That's when it's really easy to just spread them around the world.
Unless they have like the bifocal, and then I can't raise my eyes and lower them appropriately. Apparently.
Oh, here we go. Get it down here for that look.
That's cute.
Geppetto look. Well,
oh my
anyway.
gosh. So, talk to us about how you got into the historic cemeteries. How did you get interested in all that?
Yeah, kind of like if you want to hear my origin story, as I like to call it, it's just that when I was 9 years old, a creepy janitor tried to kidnap my friend and I when we were at a Girl Scout meeting. We didn't know the meeting had been canceled. And so we were like, we would always play in the graveyard. There was a church where the meeting was held. And then we go after school. When I was a kid, you could just walk around. No, your parents weren't picking you up from school. Anyway, so I was walking, I walked to the church in where the meeting was, and we play in the graveyard first. And we loved that graveyard. We did everything you should not do in a graveyard: run around, climb on precarious stones. I mean, we were lucky nothing happened. We made up stories about the ones that were cracked, and the vampire, all sorts of things that of course I would not do today. But whatever. But the long and short of it, it was actually a good thing that we knew that graveyard so well, because when we showed up for that Girl Scout meeting and we didn't know it had been canceled, this creepy janitor said, "Oh no, girls, they moved the meeting down to this other room." Long story short, he locked us in this room. We quickly realized he had bad intentions, and we managed to, I'm putting that delicately, we managed to climb out the window. Luckily, it was only on the first floor, but even when you're 9, it felt like quite a leap.
Oh, for sure.
And we got out, and then he came and still tried to get us. And the only way we got away was because we knew our way through. We'd run through that graveyard so many times that we just made a mad dash through it. He couldn't, otherwise he would have caught us. He couldn't go through the car, and on foot he couldn't keep up with us. And we managed, and then we got to the woods and took a shortcut. So I kind of say that was my big, my origin story. Like, I guess, and then as I was older and I was kind of a, sort of goth teenish in a way, or whatever the word were. But
me too.
Some of it, I sort of discovered that the local cemetery was like this big park. It was really fun to hang out in and read books and just wonder about it. And so that was that. And then as I've done research over the years for different writing projects, I would always find myself wandering into a cemetery and like to finally figure out when they died or how they spelled their name. I figure if it's on the tombstone, that's pretty definitive. Not that there aren't typos, but I just became more and more interested. Anytime I go to a new town, I want to see the historic cemetery, and it's just kind of grown from there. Now to the point where every place I go, luckily I got my husband into it as well. He's interested now, and
that helps.
Yeah, and that's why for my newsletter, if you sign up for my newsletter, I give you a free book about the meaning of hands, because that's how I got my husband interested in it. Because when you hear about cemetery symbols, it can sound like it's really arcane and kind of hard to wrap your head around, but everyone knows what a hand looks like.
Right.
But hands can mean a bunch of different things. So they're easy to identify. And then you have this satisfaction of, oh, this hand means this, but this hand means that. This one means marriage, or this one means probably sudden death. This one stands for sacrifice, different. It's like, well, it's pretty cool. So it's a really fun way to get into it. I guess I kind of veered off your original question.
No. I was just my investigative mind just takes me back to, did anything ever happen to the janitor?
This is the horrible thing. This is before Amber Alerts, right? So our parents didn't believe us. We actually got in trouble. They thought we had made it up. It was horrible. And they've apologized to me in their older years, but it was, to me, very traumatic. I guess I probably had PTSD, because I still to this day, when I sit at a restaurant, I look to see like where I could run out the door if I had to. I'm like, and I just was like that.
That's in your mind.
After that happened, I was just kind of on high alert. Like, sometimes adults are bad and they might try to get me. But what I wrote, so sadly, this horrible janitor, lived nobody called him on it. But in this book, 6 Feet Under Texas, it kind of all came back to me too, because I wrote about the Amber Alert, the girl that the Amber Alert is, Amber Hageman. And she was the same age as I was. She was 9 years old. She was a Girl Scout. She collected Barbie. Like as I learned more about her, I was like, whoa. And then I looked at pictures of her. Oh, it was just like my heart was kind of going, and I was like, it really made
this
me
is
realize
me.
What a close shave we had. I mean,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, really, really nuts, huh?
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
Man, oh man.
Oh, looks like Adam may be joining us.
Oh, yay.
Oh, we got the spinning dial.
Yay.
And I know, on a side note, I know Facebook is having streaming issues as well. So it looks like it's only being posted on YouTube currently at the moment, or working on YouTube. So who knows what's going on? It's not me.
I don't know. I've been having a lot of tech glitches lately. I think there's a lot of
probably a sun flare.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of retrograde. And then since we're all in Texas, we're all on the grid. I don't know.
Yeah, we got that to think about.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah, yes, there sure is.
Oh, goodness.
So what about, like, are there symbols that are more misunderstood than others?
Oh yeah, there are a few. Well, there's one symbol that just makes me laugh. I get 2 or 3 emails every year, at least, about it, from people asking about pentagrams. Because I like to joke whenever I give a talk, I always say, as if Hollywood has taught us anything, it's taught us that a pentagram, it's like shorthand in a movie, right? For now there's going to be a satanic cult, and there's going to be something bad happening. It's usually, maybe it's written in blood on the wall, and so I like to tell people that when you're looking at cemetery symbols, you got to remember the context. Like if I'm sitting there munching popcorn, and watching the movie, and a pentagram comes, I don't say, and this bloody pentagram on the wall, I don't go, oh, this probably means that that person is a member of the Order of the Eastern Star, benevolent. But that's what it means in the cemetery. I mean, it's a different, in the movie Hollywood context, it's going to mean one thing. And people don't understand that. They think a symbol means the same thing in every context, and it doesn't. So sadly, oh my goodness, I get my favorite email, which I always like to quote. I think the subject line just said, "Was Grandma a witch?" And I opened it up and I'm like, maybe she was Wiccan or something. But then once again, it was like, I saw this finally found my grandma's tombstone. And upon it, I found this pentagram. And to make it worse, it's like an upside down pentagram. Oh no, it's upside down. That must mean something terrible. It's just meant to show that it's connecting heaven and earth. And it is the Order of the Eastern Star. They will have pentagrams on their headstones. And to make it even worse, sometimes it will say fatal inside it, which stands for fairest among 10,000, altogether lovely. So nothing nefarious, but it's just the female auxiliary of the Masons. So the husband's probably a Mason, and you're probably going to see the cross and the square, compass and square. I'm doing a lot of hand stuff. You're going to see this. I know that doesn't make it. I just realized I was doing
I do see that.
You're going to see, honestly, I'm not closed captioning this. Yes. And then I did take sign language, but I promise I'm just gesturing meaninglessly. But really, I think I have one on the cover of my book. But you can, here's one. Here's that. Well, it's kind of dark.
Oh, yeah.
You can see it. It says fatal. I put that one on there because that's a really good one. And each of the rays of the star, each of the 5 rays stands for a different biblical heroine who can represent a different stage of being a woman. So there's one that's a daughter, there's one that's a sister, there's one that's a wife, there's one that's a widow. It's really kind of a cool teaching. And the Eastern Star is associated with the star Bethlehem, the Star of Bethlehem. But Hollywood, I think, has made us afraid of stars. We think, and pentagrams. I mean, penta just means 5. Yeah. It doesn't mean, so that is a really fun one that does tend to frighten people. And there are other ones that people get frightened in the cemetery when they don't need to be.
Yeah. I gotta admit, before I had a better understanding of the pentagram, I too, was the first time I heard pentagram, it takes me right back to the witchcraft and the devil worshiping and all that stuff. And so every time I saw one, I just thought, just like you were saying, this is negative. This is the bad stuff. This is evil type thing, not realizing that it had nothing to do with.
Yeah, because you got to realize these people, some of the tombstones or monuments that I read about that have these tremendous stories behind them, like urban legends saying that they were a witch and all this and that. I just feel sorry for that person. I'm like, man, they'd be rolling over in their grave if they could hear how people are saying that, because they're usually, when you do some historic research into it, it's like, oh, they were a deacon in their church and they did all these wonderful things, like they helped orphans or something like that, and yet people are saying, oh, he was a witch and yada yada. So yeah, it's one reason I think it's important to write. Like I wanted to write this book was to just I thought there would be a book already out that people could look at, but I think it's good to kind of I think
it's very good.
We don't spend time in cemeteries as much now as we used to. So I think it's like a forgotten language in a way. These are messages we're getting from the dead, literal messages from the dead, and we're misunderstanding them, I guess is what I'm saying. We've forgotten a lot. So that's where I'm coming from a lot. I love it.
One symbol I saw in your book, and I can't find it now.
I know, I'll probably be like,
it was, I can't find it. It was it looked like a cross upside down.
Yeah, there are a lot of crosses. I've thought about just doing a whole book on crosses before. There's 300 different ones, but
right.
I love it. I'm working on a second edition of this book because as I travel, I do get to see some more things. I'm wearing an upside down cross. I'm not sure.
It meant something complete. It didn't mean like the pentagram. It didn't mean
no. Well, another one that's misunderstood a lot is the upside down torch. Sometimes people will see a torch and it like
the flame will be upside down.
Yeah, the flame will be upside down, and so people will think that that was actually one that really made me want to start writing this book. There was the Jesus and Cowboys boots over in Paris, Texas. If you ever see that, it's a really cool monument. And people were saying, oh, but he must have been an atheist because there's upside down torches on his monument. And what are we looking at? Where?
St. Peter's Cross.
Oh yeah, because see, what page is that? You're in all the crosses.
151.
Yeah. Oh, 151 is good. I know.
Everyone, open up your books to page.
That's right.
Yes, I know. Yeah, because
that's so funny.
Yeah, well,
Facebook's back.
It is upside down because he didn't feel that he was worthy to be crucified upright like Christ. So it was kind of his way of showing his humility to be upside down, so buried. I mean, crucified. Upside down. Just being crucified is a horrible way to go.
Right.
Oh yeah, I even mentioned that. I said, thanks to modern horror films, people often assume St. Peter's Cross is a Satanist symbol. That's true. It's just meant to, that's how it goes. It's easy to have.
But I mean, it's another one. It's another one that catches you off guard,
from
like
Hollywood for sure. Yeah. I totally am with you. Yeah, and then the torch. That doesn't mean they're an atheist. It's just that's to be upside down is representative of death, and then the flame continues is like your eternal life. But sometimes it'll be snuffed out. They'll show a torch snuffed out. Interesting. The word funeral comes from an ancient Roman word funeralis, or Latin word funeralis, which because they would do bury people at night, and they would have torches. So funeral comes from a word for torch. Anyway, it was anyway.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
All the words are all the symbols are fun to find, and all the history behind them is really fun to try and figure out. And like, that's a really good one. I should, the upside down cross, that is for sure. I mean, once again, we get a lot of information culturally from Hollywood, and sometimes it can create fear in us that doesn't need to be there.
Well, it's because look at all the Exorcist or whatever, those types of movies that's what's, they show the cross that's upside down on the wall now. And it's just like, so when you see that, and just
it's
like,
that's St. Peter. No, they're not referring to St. Peter. Probably not in that context.
I mean, that's exactly
I know.
what you think.
Exactly.
You're educated enough to know that that's not Hollywood.
Yeah, but when you're kicking back in a movie, you're like, okay, this is, you got to buckle up and set your mindset for that. I'm trying to think of some other good examples. Like, a good example of something that just means completely different things depending where you are in the time period is a pitcher, like a pitcher of water, like you pitcher of milk. There's one in Weatherford Cemetery, I think. In fact, a really nice one. It shows someone named Maddie. I forgot her name. She has a pitcher that's kind of on her. It's quite large. And all right, so in her case, it means a righteous woman, and probably someone who was against drinking. So she was probably a member of the Temperance League. But if you were in a Jewish cemetery, and you see a picture on a tombstone, it means someone who was a Levite. They were descended from the Levite tribe, and they could wash the hands of the priests. So it means something. It's the same symbol. So it's not like the symbols in and of themselves are walking around going, I mean this. You have to ascribe meaning to them through your religious beliefs and the time period, and where you are. If you're watching a movie versus you're walking in a cemetery, they're just different contexts. I think
that's like a whole new language to have to learn.
Yeah, it is
what
kind
things mean in different settings.
Well, yeah, it is kind of something, and it can make it a puzzle sometimes. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm still learning. That's definitely for sure. I'm definitely still learning.
Oh, yeah.
That's really cool that you've pieced all this together and added it into your book for people to get a better understanding of what they're seeing. And what it's really neat. So we'll be carrying around your book when we go to the cemetery and flipping through the pages.
Well, and I think I know one lady came to one of my book signings and she's like, "I'm so embarrassed, but would you sign my book?" I'm like, "Why are you embarrassed?" And it was dog-eared, it had Post-it notes, it was dirty. She goes, I drive for work and I'm driving around. Every time I see a cemetery sign, I pull over, and if I'm always pulling out your book and trying to find more things." And I was like, "That's exactly who I wrote this for." I made it, I wanted it to fit in your purse or your glove box. She goes, "It rides in my glove box."
Perfect.
It was just covered in dirt. But and also the way I write it, I mean, I read a lot of really dry stuff sometimes where you're just like, "Oh, I'm sorry, am I still alive?" I read some really boring stuff sometimes, but I never want people to read my books and feel like, "Oh, there's going to be a test later," or, "Oh, she's so smart, she used this big word here." I would rather use just as nice, easy to understand language as possible. I'm not trying to impress academia. I'm trying
We appreciate you keeping it simple.
My goal is not to impress academia. I don't want, Mr. "Oh, well, look how wonderful, you can barely understand it." I want people to go, "Wow, there's a cemetery near me. I think I'm going to take this and go look around and see and not be intimidated." And I want people to have fun. I think going to the cemeteries is a wonderful family thing you can do with family and friends. You can have picnics in a country cemetery. You can walk around. You can learn about what the symbols mean. It's a really great outing. It gets everybody kind of off their screens for a while and thinking about the past. To me, it really brings history alive in a way that reading a history book doesn't. To me, walking around going, "Oh my gosh, look at all these graves. That was from that cholera outbreak of 1840. Whoa," or something like that. It just gets you.
And actually seeing it in person.
Yeah.
Instead of just reading it in a book.
I think it's more visceral. Plus, you're out in nature. You're seeing birds. You're seeing, everything else, animals. It's nice.
Yeah. And you never know. Maybe you'll get some EVPs.
True enough. I love EVPs, I must say.
Have you ever had? Oh.
No, go ahead.
Have you ever had any paranormal experiences while in the cemetery?
Yeah, and it's funny. Okay, I have to preface this a little bit. I was sort of, on the one hand, I love cemeteries so much, and I love the paranormal. I mean, I have my book to Haunted Places, Paranormal Texas. I'm into haunted stuff too, but the first thing that I think of when I think of a cemetery isn't ghosts necessarily. Like, I don't think that's the only place they hang out. And I had this real, obstacle about, I didn't even want to use the word haunted with cemeteries for some reason. I just had I was uptight about it. And my friend Teal Gray, I don't know if you've had her on your show yet. Okay, you've got to have her on your show. She is very gifted and psychic, and also she can see dead people essentially. And I hadn't known her that long, but we've been friends for a while, and now it is so funny. She is the one who told me, other psychics have told me this too, that children's spirits like to hang around with me, and kind of I bring them home from the cemetery if I'm not careful and kind of neglectful of my spiritual hygiene, for lack of a better word. And so oh my gosh, this happened so many times, like 2 or 3 times. I met Teal somewhere. One time, the funniest one was I went to her office, and this is the same thing that had happened a few times. She's like, "Oh, hi, Tui, where have you been?" I'm like, just out. She goes, "Were you at a cemetery?" I'm like, "Okay, I did stop by the one at Argyle." She's like, "You got a little blondie over here, a little blonde boy right here, and he is just next to you." She goes, "Let me just clear you." And she's clear. You got a little girl. I'm like, "Oh, good grief." So I still don't know what to think of that. So we were over in Mineral Wells, and we had done, had a really great session at the Crazy Water Hotel when it was still before they reopened it. And I mean, I saw like an orb just with my bare eyes. I'd never seen one before with my bare eyes, and like a baseball size just kind of go by.
Wow.
And I just stood there going, And then, oh crap! And then I got my camera out. But this was while they were setting up the equipment. I mean, I was like, "Hey, we weren't ready for you." Well, of course, the paranormal.
Yeah.
You're
like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Come on,
Take two.
Show was supposed to start for 2 more
Do
minutes.
that again.
No, it doesn't work. And so when other stuff happened there too, it was, and a lot of it happened while they were setting up equipment. They came back. They have video of like a vortex over my head. Something was throwing rocks at the window. Anyway, so we had this really crazy night at the Crazy Water Hotel. I think Mineral Wells has got a lot of bang for your buck when it comes to paranormal.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
All right, so we've been up like late. We got up the next morning and we just decided, on Find a Grave, you can go around and take photos of fulfill photo requests. So we had a little list and running all around trying to find them. Teal goes, she's like, Tui, come here. I'm like, what? She goes, that grave right over there. You need to read the epitaph on that one. That one's for you. I'm like, what? What does it say? She's like, you just go read that one. I'm like, ugh. So I go running over to it. And I go up to the grave and I see it's got, I forgot his name, something Dykenhofer. And then the epitaph is the orphan's true friend. And I'm like, oh. And so I'm hunkering down, trying to frame it, take a picture of it. And as I do so, I hear children laughing, like, so loudly that I think, oh, and I knew right where it was coming from, right over this little bush. So I'm thinking, there must be, in my mind's eye, I saw 2 little kids. But I stand up, obviously nobody there. Oh, I get the big old chills. Just it's like 10 in the morning, 9:30, 10 in the morning. It's not a spooky moment. It's a sunny day, but there were no children around. And I ran all around. So then she's like, what are you running all over the place for? And I was like, just to kind of make sure there weren't any kids. I did go back. I didn't have my recorder going. I didn't think. See, when I go on an investigation, I love the EVPs. That's kind of my thing. I want to get the EVPs,
Sure.
But they're so exciting, aren't they? But I wish if I had I didn't think to have a tape recorder going when I was there. So that one made me finally go, oh, all right. I think, graveyards and cemeteries can be haunted too. I don't know why. I just had this mental block on it for a while. But Teal kind of called me out on it.
Wow.
That's amazing.
It was fun.
Gosh.
It was kind of interesting on the grave. I just wonder if she said it was meant for you to read because the kids and like they like to attach to you because probably your energy and how friendly you are, and you give off that childlike energy. I don't know, your energy, and so they're probably attracted to that, and so that's why they like to hang out with you.
Yeah, it's funny. It's something I mean, real kids like me, but I mean, not real. Not that they aren't real, but living kids like me, and I love kids. But for some reason, I've had people over the years tell me several times that we've got, well, I've been told a few things that that I have like water spirit, like a water sprite. Like you've got a water sprite in your energy field. And I had some really, it's going way back. I had some really bizarre things happen with that water sprite. She was mischievous.
Oh.
I guess since I've said this much, I better keep going.
Now we want more.
Yeah,
that's right.
Okay, this is way back. There was a lady who used to come in my shop. I had a coffee house. In my 20s, I owned a coffee house and ran it, and it was just about ran me in the ground. It's a lot of hard work, but I loved it at the same time. And that's when I started having some real crazy energy experiences. Like I sometimes could see people's auras and things like this and that. But so long story short, I'm like, where to even go with this one? This lady used to come in, and she would tell me she was half Scottish and half Eskimo. And she would tell me that her Scottish father had taught her all about the little people. And she said, you have a lot of the little people energy about you. So one day she just scooped me up. She goes, can you get away from the shop for like a half an hour? And I got someone to cover me. And she goes, I've got to, this is the day that all the fairies come back. I think it must have been, spring, first day of spring or something. And she goes, we got to go down by the water. I live up in the San Juan Islands. and you need to talk to the queen of the fairies and welcome her back. I'm like, what? We're walking along the docks. I'm like, she goes, come on, go ahead. What are you going to say? I'm like, I didn't know what we were doing. She was just a real charismatic person. I was just happy to get away from my shop for half an hour. So I go, well, welcome back, fairies. We've missed you, you know, blah, 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 blah. And she said, well, now you got to give them a gift. And I went, well, I had a bracelet that I liked, but it wasn't like a family heirloom, but it was pretty sparkly. So I just went, I love this sparkly bracelet. Enjoy. And she said, now you have to ask them for a gift. And I said, oh my goodness, I don't know. Maybe this is the exact wrong thing to ask for. I said, things have been a little dull lately in my life. So I said, maybe just a little mischief or something fun.
Uh-oh.
So I forget I've said this. Okay. I completely forget this. And it is, I was open Monday through Saturday. And on Saturdays, I didn't close till midnight. And then I had to do all the dishes because my cook would sneak out the back. He was supposed to do the dishes. And I swear they were to the ceiling that night. I was like, oh, good grief. So I'm sitting there doing these dishes. Oh, no, there were a couple people still hanging out, but I had to do the dishes. My good friend came back to help me do the dishes. Sorry, this isn't going back there. I have to, think back. So I'm like, okay, so I'm doing the dishes. And, when you have a restaurant, you have to like the soap, and then you have the rinse, and then you have one with bleach, a little bit of bleach. So you have this whole thing. And so we were just doing it. We had our gloves on, our rubber gloves on. I was wearing a pink beret. And my friend and I were chatting, and I was like, oh, I hope we can get out of here. I want a cocktail. I was really like, I've been making coffee all day. I just need to relax. So she's handing me a plate in her gloved hand. I'm grabbing it in my gloved hand. All of a sudden, I feel something. I wish I was wearing a beret now. I could show you what it looked like. Just lifted, like pretend this is my beret, pulled the beret up, and then dropped it on my head. And then I heard the word mischief in my head. And then there was like white mist all around me. Like much mist that we went and grabbed a couple people, a couple friends who were out there waiting for us who weren't helping dishes. Oh. Anyway, I said, don't tell him anything. I ran around the corner and I'm like, Hans, what do you see? And he goes, what is it? Did you spray something in here? Why is it all, what's this white mist from? And then the other person goes, oh my gosh, did your refrigerator like broke? Is that Freon? And they were like, it feels tingly. They could all feel it. So it wasn't just in our eyes. That confirmation was really cool. And then from that point on, this little spirit who I ended up naming her, the little water sprite, would just do goofy things. Like you could feel when the energy was really picking up in the coffee house, like my necklace would pop off and fly across the room. It was always really playful and fun. It was never mean-spirited or anything. And in fact, it almost seemed protective. I was being kind of harassed one time, and things just seemed to shove the person out the door. Like it felt like a protective thing. So yeah, that was how did we get on this topic? everyone's going to really
things just happen around here.
That's right.
We talk about all sorts of things.
Talk about everything.
I generally kind of keep some of my weirder stuff, under my desk, but whatever. I think
we're all for it.
I'm weird already. I've given up. I tried appearing normal for so long. I don't think it's really fooling anybody.
Yeah, same here. Even at work, they all know.
You think you're being so normal? Oh, at work? Oh, I used to try so hard. I thought I was being so normal, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, why don't you see she's the weird one?" I'm like, "What? I thought I was so normal all week." No, you just can't pass, I guess.
Yeah, it like oozes out of you or something. Everybody knows.
Yeah.
So it's funny because my boss, like every time I come back from an investigation, because they know what I'm doing.
Oh yeah,
he always goes, yeah, he's like, don't bring anything back, or and he just jokes around and stuff, and says that next thing he knows, he'll walk into his office and there's like papers everywhere and stuff.
Oh. Yeah, a pentagram and an upside down cross.
Yes, exactly. All of a sudden symbols start appearing.
Yeah, that would be scary. That would be scary.
That's so funny.
Oh my gosh. But one thing did happen that was weird that I don't think I told you, Carla. Ooh. But we went to On the Border out of all things.
That's so weird. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, it's a weird place. No.
Whoa.
But we and I'm actually a team leader at my place of work. And so we hired someone new, and she started, and the day that she started, we ended up taking her out to lunch to On the Border. Well, we walked into On the Border, and right before we sat down, the lights started flickering.
Ooh.
And
that's all you.
Yeah, that's right. You got the electrical thing.
And they all sit down, and I was just waiting for him to say something, but he didn't think of it, at the time, because he's probably more focused on, like, we're more focused on getting to know her and stuff like that. And so it was really funny, because we end up sitting down, and the waiter goes, "Did y'all see that? Was that weird?" And I'm in my head, I'm laughing, and I'm like trying to, stay normal. No.
Yeah.
But it ended up coming out during lunch, that I do paranormal investigating.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm the weird one. Yeah.
It's
It's so funny. But it was just something really weird that happened. So it just seems to follow all of us. You can't get out of it no matter where you go.
Yeah. Well, when something does follow you home, though, that can be scary. I've had that happen.
Oh, yeah. No hitchhiking ghosts.
No. We've been fortunate so far to make sure that everything is staying where we left it.
Yeah, that's good. I when I go on a paranormal investigation, like, do you do something afterwards to cleanse or anything, or say that's good? When I didn't do it, though, was when I helped my husband's mom passed away in like 2013. Doesn't really matter when, but I helped clear all her estate, and she had tons of antiques. She had all these things. They traveled the world growing up because his dad was an airline mechanic, and one of the items there included they had an Egyptian mummy head, which they donated to a museum later, but that thing creeped me out. I didn't even touch that. But there were some really old things from Egypt there that they had gotten like in the 70s or something like that when he was a little kid. Anyway, something came home with me, and because I didn't think about it, and I thought I was sick. Actually, I would wake up with like this cold sweat at night, and I would feel this sort of oppressive energy around me at night. But I actually, and my neck felt kind of weird, and I actually made a doctor's appointment. I was like, well, I'll see the doctor next Tuesday. Yeah. But then my friend came to visit, and she is really intuitive, and she does body work on people, and she just can tell things. And she just walked in, and 30 seconds in, she's just like, "Have you been around something old lately?" I'm like, "What?" Well, yeah. She goes, "I think, have you been, what is going on? I think you've got a boogie." And I'm like, "What do you mean a boogie?" She goes, "There's something attached to your energy, and I'm going to get rid of it." And so she did it. I was asking all these questions like, "What is it? What kind of thing?" She goes, "No, the less you know about it, the less you engage with it, the better." Which, wow. Don't say Voldemort's name, basically.
Wow.
Yeah.
And she did, as she was doing some stuff, and all of a sudden there was like a click in my neck, and I'm like, "Oh," and I had sort of a low-grade fever. It was gone. No more waking up with a sweat, no more nothing. And I realized, wow. Oh my gosh, if that had been an investigation or something, I would have thought. But just being around so much old stuff, it just really made me realize, wow, it's something I slack on it, the whole cleansing aura.
Well, sometimes we will sage, and then other times we just say, "You need to stay here."
Yeah, that's good.
The hotel or whatever the case is, and stuff.
Yeah.
Teal Gray, I mentioned her earlier. She makes this spray that I take when I'm traveling, because I travel a lot, but you can't sage in a cruise ship, or you can't sage in a hotel. You can't just light up. And so the first time I needed to sage when we were traveling, and I didn't know what to do, I stole a salt shaker from the dinner table, and I had this really high quality rose perfume, and I kind of made a whole perimeter, and I did a whole thing clapping, and I waited until my husband was gone, because he would have thought I was nuts. But I mean, but the funny thing is, I can sage our house and all this stuff, and then when he comes back, he'll just be like, "Oh, it feels so good in here. What did you do today?" He'll think I've done a deep cleanse or something. You know? No,
It
I just,
doesn't.
but she's got a spray, so that really is good for when you travel in places where you can't
That's what
burn
we
stuff.
use. One of our investigators brought
Oh, good.
spray, and so
Oh,
we
it's
had to
good
use that
stuff.
last weekend.
Yeah,
Oh,
so we didn't have to light anything and then,
Yeah.
a lot of times you shouldn't
have
light.
to vacate too because we're coughing. No.
Yeah.
Not only saging the spirits, we're saging ourselves out,
Yeah.
out the door too. Goodness. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man. But I did have a question for you about the aura space alien, because I saw that when I went to Austin at the Weird Museum, they have like a little replica, like kind of crispy looking alien.
Oh, really?
And I should have pulled that picture out, but I took some pictures, and I've always wanted to visit there because it's not too far away from where I am. But I think it'd be cool to take a trip out there. And I know that one was one of your strangest graves that you've visited in Texas. And
I would say so. I sometimes joke to people that I used to write fiction, but then I moved to Texas.
It became reality.
Yeah.
It's pretty true. There are some really goofy things. Over in Eastland, Texas, they've got a embalmed lizard on display in a little velvet casket in their courthouse, in their city courthouse. I mean, what? So there's so many goofy things. And so this
bunch of weirdos here.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I include all these weird stuff in my books. It's like great book fodder. It's just, this is weird, but it's true. But so the Aurora incident. So I just got to tell you how I found out about it, because I had just only lived here a couple of years, and I was at like a potluck or something, a barbecue, and this guy comes up to me and he's like, "Oh, I hear you're a writer." And I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, you know what you ought to write about?" Of course, when people say that, it's usually something, I hate to say, it's usually something really boring or something that really based. I mean, to me, it's not really, I'm like, you should write about my Aunt Elma, she stepped on a, slug barefoot. I mean, just something really boring. I'm like, I was bracing myself. So he goes, "Well, you know what you ought to write about?" And I'm like, "No, tell me." He goes, "Oh, you ought to write about that little space alien they buried up the road a piece." And I'm like, "What did you just say to me? Are you kidding me?" He goes, "No, you live right by it." He tells me to go up to Aurora. So I'm like, "What?" So we went up there, and it's a historic cemetery. It's got a Texas State historic marker, and it mentions Aurora is also known for the legend surrounding a space alien, a spaceship that crashed in 1897, which is 50 years before Roswell. And there was and the occupant inside it that was burnt, which they buried. And you can go see where they buried it. Well, when I got there, I saw this cool headstone that had like a cigar-shaped, object like chiseled into it with little portholes. It was so cute. And I went back a couple weeks later wanting to get another picture, and someone had stolen it by then. So it's a good thing I got it when I did. So I got a picture of that. If people want to see that, that's on my website. And people now steal my photo to use. I see it all over the place. It's even been in a book. They didn't give me any credit. But so I thought this was crazy. Well, so I do a lot of newspaper research. I really love it. I have newspapers.com, but sometimes I get access to some other newspaper archives as well. And I love all those. And so I just started ever since then. So like I said, I went from thinking this is the stupidest thing ever to I typed in airship 1897, and it turns out there were hundreds of airship sightings in 1897 in Texas in the springtime. There's like a 3-month period. And I have been researching this since 2011 or 12, whenever that was. And hopefully next fall I'll have a book out about it. I just gave a talk at the International UFO Congress about it in 2019, and that was a blast. But my approach, to me, it's really fascinating to read accounts of 1897. Just to clarify, nothing other than a buzzard should have been flying over your head. I mean, we did not have controlled flight yet. And so it was really exciting to read these newspaper accounts. I wish I had some of Grandpa Jones' diary. That would be the best. But people would report, like, how they reacted. So they would trying to describe a machine when you lived in a time when you would not have heard machines. So they'd said, Farmer Joe is outside. Like I read an account, Farmer Joe was outside. He heard a huge swarm of bees coming his way. Then he saw lights, and he thought it was a tornado, a cloudless tornado, and he climbed into his tornado shelter with his wife. Things like that. Like I love all that. Ministers, preachers it was 1897, so almost time for Y2K. No, almost time for, turn of the century. Almost time for turn. People were worried about, sure, 1900. Oh, it's got to be the end of the world. I mean, this must be, these things, they would see them at night. If you're seeing strange lights in the night, it must mean that it's the end of the world. Then there were obviously a couple hoaxes, not as many as I expected. Then there some pretty sincere sightings. And so I've been gathering these up and kind of putting them, sorting them out, looking for what they have in common. It's too long for, I guess, us to talk, because I can go on and on about it give a whole talk about it. Like I said, I went from thinking it was the stupidest thing ever, or someone was yanking my chain, to like, this is really kind of a cool little thing. What were people seeing? And I don't think we'll ever be able to prove what they were seeing, but what's fascinating to me is how they reacted to what they thought they saw, how they described it in the terms of the time. Like I like to tell people, sometimes people say, well, those people in Aurora were stupid. They buried the alien. I'm like, okay, this is 1897. There was no NCIS Aurora or whatever,
right?
CSI Aurora. I mean, it was like the idea to have an autopsy that was only for criminals or for someone you thought was a witch. It was not a respectful thing to do. And I come across accounts all the time of a mysterious person dying in your town. Everyone just bucks up and builds a coffin and gives them a Christian burial. So that was totally of the time thing to do. So it's another, I guess I'm really fascinated by context, because historical context it's really easy to look back on people 100 years ago and think they were stupid in some way, just as it's easy to look back on yourself 10 years ago and think you were stupid. But I think you have to think the historical context of yourself at 10 years ago. That's what I finally realized. I'm like, I finally realized I have to give people 100 years ago realize they're coming from a different mindset. Wow, I have to be a little nicer to myself too, and realize that 10 years ago I was coming from a different mindset too. It kind of made me go easier on myself. But I think that we tend to look back at the past and just judge it by today's standards, like, well, everyone knows this, everyone knows that. Hey, come on, 100 years ago, those people knew a lot of things we don't know too. I bet they knew a lot about chickens and farming and everything that I didn't know. So we have to, I don't know. To me, it's very exciting like I said, it's this little side project that I've just gotten a little obsessed about. And now it's definitely turned into a book. And hopefully next year. Oh, someone showed up here. Jackie Williamson. Hey, hi.
Oh, yay.
Yeah, better late than never.
Hey, Jackie.
Right. Hey, Jackie. I'm talking about the Aurora space alien.
Yeah, Jackie. At first we weren't able to post this on Facebook, and now it's on Facebook, so it's working. So, yeah, sorry for the the delay on Facebook, you guys, but you can check out the full video on YouTube as well.
Yeah, we talk about fairies too.
Yes, we went all over the place. Woohoo!
Hollywood, Satan.
Yes,
fairies.
Right. Yes. And I was just going to mention about the Aura space alien. I think it's really sweet that they did bury him.
Yeah.
Or her. Mm-hmm. Him, her.
You never know.
You never know.
I don't know what the aliens' pronouns were, but
yes. Yeah. But I just think that it was so nice. Like, I don't know.
It was Easter. Nice. It was the day before Easter, and the little town of Aurora had gone through a lot. They had essentially a plague that had gone through, where even if you survived it, you might have been blind or paralyzed, which, imagine being blind or paralyzed in 1897, how hard that would be to function. Oh, you're watching quietly except for laughing. Oh, good. Glad you're laughing.
Yay.
Yes. I know sometimes people come to my talks and they're like, one of my favorite comments was a guy, I'll ask him for comments later. What did you think? What do I need to improve? Or what did you like? And one person said, I never thought I'd laugh so much at a talk about cemeteries. I'm like, well, good. I'm glad he laughed.
Depressed.
Yeah. Yeah. You should be having a good time.
That's right. Laugh while you can.
Oh my gosh.
But I do like the point that you make that, we don't, I mean, if we're looking back at today's standards, at what people thought back then, and judging them, saying, oh, it's, I don't know, like you hear this, oh, it's common sense. They should have known better back then, kind of thing. And now that you put it that way, and I think I've even caught myself saying something like that.
Me too. But,
and so
not only were they being nice and proper Christians by burying this stranger, but also maybe it had something they could have caught, and they had just had a big illness. I mean, there were letters to the editor. Rome is only like 2 miles away from Aurora, and people were writing letters saying, no one has caught the illness here in Rome. Our grave digger doesn't even know what to do with himself. I mean, things like that. Meanwhile, poor Aurora, they had a fire, they had weevils attacking their cotton. They had just one thing after another. And so it was like, oh, great. Now we got a space alien that died in our backyard. Let's just bury it and move on.
Yeah. So I just think, and I think the same thing is going to happen. Like, I don't know, 100 years from now, people are going to be looking at our, everything that we film and post on YouTube, which is probably going to go extinct one day, and just like all the videos and stuff, things that we've done and said, and just like shake their heads and be like, man, y'all are just being goofy this whole time.
Yeah.
Didn't they realize? Wasn't it obvious to them? How did they not know?
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we are steeped in this moment. That's the cool thing. We are totally in this moment and of this moment. I think that when we study history, it kind of gives us a little chance to try and get into another moment and think about what it was like for them. And to me, that's a lot of the fun of it. It's almost like a costume that you put on, not just what they wore, but the thoughts that they put on can be part of that exciting, just,
Yeah.
We kind of just went through that with our investigation of Jefferson last weekend. It was one of these
where'd you investigate?
We're still reviewing like footage and stuff, but it's the type of thing where they don't know what our equipment is. They don't know what the lights are doing, or if it's going to hurt them, or if they touch something, it's not going to, cause problems and stuff. They don't know that, and to have the forethought to explain and show and see, I can touch this and it just lights up pretty lights. And or some of the other conversations that you get into, we find ourselves talking like we would today and not realizing that we might not even realize what half that stuff we just said was.
That's true.
There's a lot of jargon that comes and goes. And I just wanted to get back to Susan there about how they wouldn't have said space alien in 1897. Yeah, although what really surprised me was they did use the term Martian. There was a book that came out in 1897 by Georges du Maurier called The Martian. And if you go to Amazon, which is the same title as that book by Andy Weir, The Martian, that was made into the movie with Matt Damon. And so if you go at Georges du Maurier's Amazon page, at least when I was there were a lot of angry reviews going, I read this, it had nothing to do with that movie with Matt Damon. I'm like, yeah, they're two different things. But the term Martian actually existed in 1897, which shocked me. And there were, that was one of the theories at the time in 1897 that the airships, they didn't say spacecraft, they didn't use space. So that is a really good point that Susan's making there. They call them airships, but some of them thought that the airship occupants were from Mars and that they might be Martians, because there had been an astronomer, Italian astronomer Schiavelli, who had seen these lines on Mars and he'd mapped them out, and in Italian he called them canali. And so they just translate that into English as channels, which to us sounds like water, but it doesn't necessarily mean that to him. Canal, that was it. Canal. So we think of a canal with water, but when he was saying canali, I don't think he necessarily thought there was water in them, but everyone, then it just captured people's minds. And then they all figured that since in Greek lore, Martians are, Mars is the planet of war, And so then they were like, oh no, maybe they must be warlike. They kind of, it's interesting, the whole thought process, different theories that people had at the time. It was a lot of fun.
Wow.
Yeah.
To read about.
That's awesome. And just, yeah.
And it seems like more and more is coming out about aliens. It's like people that were forbidden to talk about anything have either passed on or they're too old and they don't care.
I have a hard time saying UAP. I just want to say UFO. How they changed the lingo now.
Acronym.
I don't know. Why change the lingo? Like, come on, UFO. But I guess
that's right.
There's a stigma to some people. I mean, maybe they think it sounds more, they can define the term UAP more. UFO, I guess, can mean a lot of things to people. People just jump to the alien conclusion even though it's just unidentified flying object people.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm very curious what they're going to find out. My brother is retired military. He used to be a test pilot for the B-2 bomber, which was a big triangular aircraft. So I was telling him, I wonder how many UFO sightings you caused because he couldn't even tell us what he was doing for a while. But he does say that he saw a UFO once when he was a kid. Wow. And I forgot to ask him. I saw him last week, but I forgot to ask him. One of these times I want to grill him a little bit more. He can certainly keep a secret, I guess. But he won't ridicule people who he's always been like, well, he saw something and he knew it was not, I don't know how he put it, but it was a UFO. He knew it was not anything that anybody had made. And this is someone who should know, right? He was, the wing commander at Edwards Air Force Base. So I don't know. Every now and then my ears always perk up when these retired Air Force people on their deathbed speak out, or hopefully.
Yeah. What have I got to lose?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Just spill the beans.
That's right.
I'm always curious. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say. It would just be crazy just to think that, I don't know, that we are alone in this ginormous universe. I mean, for all we know, there could be other humanoids that look just like us on another planet somewhere. They're not called Earthlings, but they
sharing the same space that we have. Maybe there's so much we don't understand about space. So much of space is actually empty, and so much is either dark matter or dark energy. And there's just so much when you watch a science documentary that they really don't know. And they know a lot, obviously, but even the leading astrophysicists, the astronomers, what they can explain is such a small fraction of what is here. And when you think of different dimensions and how we experience time the way we do, I think Professor Brian Cox, he was really interesting. I saw a clip or a documentary where he was talking about time and just saying that we don't know what time is. It's so fundamental. It rules our life. You're late for this. You got to get there for that. Time. It's such a given in our existence. And yet the greatest minds of our time cannot explain what it is. And they're even like, hey, it's just one of the mysteries. Really. So there's so much we don't know. I do wonder. I think that it doesn't have to be really far away. Like, I wonder if there's some intersection, or sitting in my living room right now, maybe at a slightly stuttered different time, there could be a different life happening that I'm not even aware of, or a different thing happening right here. And then maybe things happen every now and then where they bounce against each other. And then I think I've seen a ghost. I don't know. It's kind of fun to play around with.
Or the glitch in the Matrix.
Yeah. Oh, I've experienced some glitches in the Matrix. That's for sure. My husband finally experienced one. I basically married Spock. He thinks that everything is very explainable and it's very Newtonian and like a machine. The world works like a machine. But this morning he had something happen where he had like a pen like this that he had been using. And he goes, have you been using my pen? I'm like, no, I never use your pens. I got my pens. I'm a writer. I love my pens. I leave his pens alone. Well, everything inside, it was a big fat pen, was empty. It no longer had a pen inside it. And he'd been writing with it yesterday. So he tried to blame it on the cat, which I'm like, oh, come on.
No postal thumbs.
No. Yeah, and then the other thing that happened to him, so I said, "What is going on with you?" Because the other thing was he called me yesterday from the backyard, and he goes, "Oh, that was really cool. I looked at the phone and I thought, oh, I need to call Tui, and it just dialed you." He goes, "I didn't even say anything. It's not like it just called you." And I'm like, "Dude, you're having some little glitches in the matrix happen right now." But he's like, "No, it's got to be a rational." I'm like, I don't know. It sounds like some kind of funky stuff's happening.
Yeah.
I want the universe to goose him a little bit. I do.
Man, he has more abilities than me now.
Yeah, everything starts levitating all of a sudden. Whoa.
Yeah. And you mentioned Spock, and there was a cemetery symbol for that.
Oh yeah.
That you have in your free cemetery symbols. What can hands mean? I posted a link to your free ebook.
Oh yeah, check it out. The Kohan hands
for everybody.
And it is related.
Check out.
Leonard Nimoy is Jewish, and he noticed some people in his synagogue making this symbol, and it is the Kohan hands. So anyway, but it was startling to see on a tombstone the first time. I was like, what? Because I didn't know. You can think, what is
you automatically went to Star Trek.
I went to Star Trek. And it does have a correlation since Gene Roddenberry said, well, what could Spock do? He, when he was developing the character, and Nimoy just went back to that and went, oh, he could do that.
Wow, that is so cool, though. I just thought, the writers came up with it or something, but
I know,
that's cool that he actually came up with that.
He did, and it went back to his Jewish heritage and something he'd seen at his synagogue. Kind of cool.
That's really cool. Yay.
So I was gonna say, you've mentioned a few things now that made me wonder, like the San Juans and stuff. Did you live in the Seattle area?
Oh, I did. Yeah, I lived in Eastern Washington until I was 18. Then I moved to the West Coast, and I lived on a little island up in the San Juans for a while, for 5 years.
Or
no, Sinclair Island. There's no ferry service. It was like Gilligan's Island, but no coconuts, basically. So you're familiar with that neck of the woods. Sounds like
I lived in Snohomish and the
Everett area,
and stuff like that.
Oh, I was just up there too. That whole area.
I retired for Boeing.
You did? Oh.
So that's why when you start talking about the B2, and it's like, I used to make proximity sensors for the B2.
Oh, that is so cool. Oh, and my nephew works for Boeing now. And then my brother worked for Boeing after he retired from the Air Force for a little while. He was doing really fun, like war games, simulated war games things.
Southern California?
Cool. Yeah, that's where he was. But he moved up. Now he lives in Renton area.
Yeah.
So I don't know. He was always flying to he was flying to St. Louis a lot. And then he went there for a while.
Home base.
Yeah, he actually lived there for a little while too.
Yeah.
Oh, that is so funny. Yeah, you know that. The mothership. Oh, wow. So
St. Louis. It's like,
oh man. Oh, how funny. So the Boeing. Oh, Boeing's a big deal up there. How funny.
Yeah.
Proximity. Whoa, detectors. Wow.
Yeah. What I would like you to explain to the viewers and us is like the etiquette of going into cemeteries. Now, most of the time, I mean, we go day and night, but a lot of times it's mostly night. So you're not able to see a whole bunch of stuff. And I know me, for one, I'm always conscious about where I'm walking and not to step on a grave but then you come upon graves that have headstones at the top and bottom, and it's almost like they're back to back, and it's like, where do you walk?
Yeah. Well, okay. So a lot of that about not walking over the grave is simply because the old wood coffins would eventually cave in. And I did meet a man. I gave a talk at a monument builders conference once, and this man told me that he always said never go to a graveyard alone or a cemetery alone, which I try never to do. I never go alone. And he said for safety reasons, he goes, there's one time I knew we were going to be setting a monument the next day, and I knew there was a lot of clay soil there. I didn't like setting monuments at this place, so I just wanted to take a quick look on my way home from another job. I didn't have anybody with me. He goes, I left my cell phone in the car. It's just building up to be bad already. He goes out and he goes, oh, I realized that the sun was setting, so I just cut across this. It's a historic cemetery, old, and East Texas. And he was kind of trotting back to the car. He was a pretty big guy. He heard a crunch, he says, and it was mucky. The water table was low. He was wearing boots, and his leg just got slurped into the dirt, and he couldn't get it out. Luckily, someone else came along and was able to get him out. But he goes, that's the real reason you should walk over graves, is because if they are the older ones that are collapsed like that, or just in general, the land can settle. It's I try not to, I try to kind of follow a given path, but it depending on how the layout of this, what sort of cemetery you're in, the layout can be different. Some can be very cattywampus. I know I walk across things, every now and then as well. But etiquette. Just you got to be real careful at night. That's for sure. Though it's easy to trip and fall. Yeah. And you got to make sure that it's okay with them if you're there at night, because a lot of them will say they don't want people there after sunset. So you don't want to ruin it for the rest of us.
For sure.
But I guess I don't know if that answered your question or not. I hope I did.
Because I mean, like some of the cemeteries we've been to have a lot of war veterans.
Oh, okay.
And we're able to thank them for their service and stuff like that, and try and be very respectful and stuff. But there's times where I know I've walked probably on stuff that I just didn't know I was walking on, and I'm always very apologetic for every step I take. It's just like, I'm so sorry.
I'm not trying to step on anybody.
Right. I figure, that's why, I mean, like I like to say that cemeteries are for the living. I don't think people are laying there in the ground. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I mean, they are literally laying there in the ground, but I feel like none of us knows what happens after death, for sure. We would all like to look, and we all have our theories and our experiences, but I think just the cemetery gives us a place to go. And I think if your spirit, your attitude is respectful, that counts for much more than the fact that maybe you've stepped on a grave here or there. I don't think that counts as disrespect. I just the disrespect comes from within. It comes from your attitude towards how you are there, and
your intentions.
That's it. That's where the disrespect is or isn't. And I think that especially in their state at the if they can they're picking up on that. I think that's what they're picking up on, if there's a spirit there with you.
Yeah. And I'm sure they're like out hanging out at other places, doing other things. Because I know you wouldn't want to stick to you wouldn't want to stick to a grave. You want to go explore. I don't know, go out into outer space and then find those aliens.
Then again, they can experience time differently, I'm sure, once they're out of our human construct. So who knows? They can probably zip around, and then you happen to be visiting their grave with some flowers, or you're just, if it's someone you know, or maybe you're just there because they're a historic figure. Then I think they can tune into you then too. Consciousness. Yeah.
There's one thing though that I read that I was under the impression of was the coins on the graves. And I was also under the impression when it's military that certain denominations of coins meant certain things. And
people get mad at me.
Book, it was like, that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, right? and at this point, I'm beginning to think that we're witnessing a new tradition coming about, because when I first heard about the coins on graves for coins on graves goes way, way back, and ancient Greece again, paying the ferryman, you would put coins in the mouth of the deceased or coins on the eyes, and it's come over the millennia. It's just come to leaving coins as just a way of paying respects. A lot of times I see it on graves of criminals too. So maybe it's just kind of hoping, that helping them out a little bit in the afterlife. I don't know, like notorious criminals, but it doesn't have to be. Not that they always are. But the whole thing about and I have an article that's more coherent about this than I am right now. Apparently, I don't feel very articulate right now. But about 2009 was the first time I heard that the specific, like a dime, a penny means this, a nickel means that, a dime means that. And someone had sent me the article about it. And I don't have that article. I wish I had saved it, because then I started seeing other articles and they would say different things meant, like a dime meant this and a nickel meant that. And then on another article, it would say, no, a dime means this and a nickel means that. And it seems like since that time period, it's kind of becoming maybe regulated, because certain stories keep coming out about that. But I don't think that tradition has been ongoing. I've talked to some really old veterans about it. And the only thing I ever found from them, heard from them, was that challenge coins have been a thing. And that's a different thing. So a challenge coin is a specific coin that's created for I'm not a military historian. I'm not real good at regiment or whatever. I don't know, has something to do with your group, platoon, regiment. Right. I don't know those words, but you know how they have different patches that might mean different things. And so like you might have a snake on it for your group, your platoon. So when you visited the grave of someone who you had served with, you might put the challenge coin on their grave. And I actually have seen challenge coins on some graves. And that has been going on for a while, like at least, it's been going on for decades. The whole thing that everyone is constantly spilling around, especially Memorial Day and Veterans Day, I get tons of things about, this coin means this coin means that. And I'm like, I used to just say flat out, it doesn't. But now I think it's a new tradition we're witnessing in the making. I think someone came up with it and it sort of caught on. But I don't think, from what I can tell, I mean, it's ongoing. The earliest source that I found was 2009. And then I looked on Snopes.com to help out with that too. And they were saying, it seemed to have appeared in the early 2000s too. So it wasn't just me, because I was like, I hadn't heard of this before. And like I said, I know veterans and everything, and the ones that I talked with, but it's a real testy subject. Like, certain historians, certain people can get really mad at you when you research something and you find out something they thought was one thing. And I've had people call me, like, I point out the thing about the coins on the graves and how, like, it doesn't seem to be a really long-standing tradition. It seems to be a new one that's coming along. I have had people irate at me, like yelling at me, and just like, like I'm some non-patriotic person. And I'm like, come on. And people just jump all over you. But I found out the real name for someone who had died, and I was really excited about it. And the newspaper printed something about it. I got this really angry email from the local historian, like, how did you come up with all this? So I gathered up all my evidence and I, put it in a little PDF file for it. I sent it back off. I mean, there's all caps. She was so mad at me. And I'm like, I was like, oh, someone responded to the article. I'm all naive. Oh, maybe it'll be a nice little, she hates me. Like,
she's just jealous.
Sorry. So then I sent back my research to her, and I never heard a peep back. So I wasn't just coming from nowhere. And on the other hand, when you research a topic, you do get very attached to it. Like, I understand that feeling of like, I kind of own this little day in history. Well, obviously I don't, but you can kind of get attached to your research. And I know that feeling. Like, I'll catch myself feeling that someone else does an article about something I've been researching, and I'm like, hey, that's my topic. And then I'm like, oh, come on. And then I read it. I'm like, wow, it was really good. And they felt, okay. But it's just a natural tendency. I don't know what it is. There should be a word for it.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. Yeah. We kind of have that going with Jefferson.
I know. I just love that town. I totally have a crush on Jefferson.
Yeah, we stayed at the Jefferson Hotel, because I know you asked.
I've been wanting to go there. Oh, cool.
And that's where we had a bunch of activity going on.
But you know what? If you're from the Northwest, have you ever been to Port Townsend?
Yes.
Isn't that a lot like Jefferson?
Yes.
You see?
Yes, it is. Think about it.
You're in like a bar, and you hear water sloshing below it, and like I knew people who worked there, and they took me down and showed me where the Shanghai tunnels were to like
Wow.
Buy you a drink, and then you wake up like indentured servant on a sailor. Yeah, it's kind of, they remind me of each other, Jefferson, and like they be sister cities for cute little towns.
Yeah.
Wow.
We're kind of drawn to that hotel and specifically.
Oh, yeah. I've been really wanting to go there. I want to hear how it goes for your research. Sure. People were telling me about it at the UFO conference. They were staying at the Jefferson, and they were showing me pictures on their phone, and they were telling me things that had happened, and I was like, dang.
What's going on over there? Yeah.
I want to go.
There's a lot of activity there for sure.
Well, it seems like the right people own it.
Yes.
Because they're really into it. Some places are really they don't want you to talk about it. Like the Excelsior Hotel.
Oh, the Excelsior.
I read an article about them, and they said, don't use the word ghost, spirit, haunted, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, wow, okay.
Which is strange because it's like,
that's what draws people in. You make lots of money.
Mm-hmm. It's a weird thing. It is funny. Well, then there was a lady in Weatherford, Candace, I forgot her last name, but she owns that Angel's Nest B&B in Weatherford. It's so cute, and it's haunted as all get out. But for a long time, she didn't tell anybody. She actually made a 911 call because she was doing the books, like downstairs in her office, just doing the books. She heard like heavy clomping and people walking. She thought there was a break-in, even though you have to use a key card, but she ends up calling 911. And then the cops come, and they walk all around, and they're like, there, dear, go sit down. And so she finally went public and admitted that this place is haunted. Well, now sometimes people stay there, and then they're mad at her because nothing happened the night they were there. Like,
I see.
Isn't that funny? Yeah, it wasn't active enough. I mean, they're not circus animals.
Yeah,
they're normal.
Right? Yeah. So I try and explain. To people too, it's relating. It's like fishing. Every time you go fishing, you're not guaranteed a fish.
That's a good one. I know. I say it's like cats. If you trained your cat to do a trick, well, they're only going to do it sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's good fishing. I think that's a really good one.
Yeah, but it's just you're telling people what to do. I don't know. It's nice that they actually, if they respond to you, that's great,
Yeah.
But you shouldn't expect it to always happen, and it should always happen, and force people to do something that they don't want to do, even
if you went there
in the afterlife.
And if you went there and nothing happened, doesn't mean it's not haunted. Some people get really mad. They'll go someplace like, well, in my book Paranormal Texas, I went to that place. That's not haunted. It was in your book. I'm like, what do you mean?
Maybe they just want to talk to you that night.
Yeah. Go back again.
Our experience has been they let you know when they're done.
Oh,
they literally say
goodbye.
You can't talk anymore, or goodbye, or
low energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. We just say thank you and we move on.
Yeah. And if they want to follow us to the next room or somewhere else, they're welcome to follow us. So, at least in the hotel, not outside the hotel.
Yeah, you gotta clarify.
They got to stay. They got to stay put. Yeah.
Like we'll go have dinner. You stay here. We'll be back.
Yeah. You rest up.
That's right.
Recharge your batteries.
Yeah.
That's right. Literally.
And then us crazy folks will be back.
Yep.
So what have you got coming up that you want to share with everybody?
Let's see. Well, let's see. I would invite anybody watching, if they are interested in the cemeteries, then to go to my website and sign up for my newsletter and get my freebie book. My newsletter comes out on the 1st and the 15th. I am about to go on a really long trip. I'm going to be going around Japan and the South Pacific, actually all the way around the world. I'm going to be going all over the place. So everywhere I go, I will be going to historic cemeteries. So I invite you, if you join my newsletter, then I'll keep you up. I'm going to be, keep the newsletter going while I'm out and about. The other thing, until September 21st, I have a contest going to promote my friend's book. Now, I don't have her book on me yet. I have a digital copy and the hard copy hasn't arrived. I was so hoping I'd have it in time for this, but it's called Cemetery Birding. And my friend is Jennifer Bristol, and she used to be a park ranger. She really knows birds. I should add her other book. I have her other book. She wrote another book called Parking Lot Birding, which is wonderful. But this new one is called Cemetery Birding. And so the contest is, if you've taken a picture of a bird in a cemetery, you should share it on Facebook, or you can email me if you don't use Facebook, or you can share it on Twitter. And you need to use the hashtags cemetery birding and contest. And yeah, you can email me if you want. And on September 21st, Jennifer is going to choose her 3 favorite photos of the cemetery birding photos. You can actually see a collection of all the cemetery birding photos we have so far over at Tui Snider's Cemetery News, which is my Facebook group for people who like cemeteries. And so yeah, if you go there, you can see it. If you join the newsletter, I will send you the link again. But there is a photo album there. You can see all the different ones. There's some pretty cool ones, like a vulture standing there, sunning, how they with their wings open. There's a bald eagle. There's really some gorgeous ones, like a cardinal in the snow, but with tombstones around it. So I invite people to share their cemetery birding pictures. Cemeteries are great places to go birding. Cemeteries are great. They're really, so this is one thing I often say, cemeteries are for the living, because not only do they nurture us when we visit them, but the plants and animals. There are many cemeteries that actually support endangered pollinators, bees, butterflies, all sorts of birds. They're on a migratory path. They really can be wonderful places. So anyway, join us, send us your cemetery birding photos, and maybe you'll win her fabulous book. I've already used her book to identify some birds. I found a yellow-billed cuckoo taking a bath in my backyard the other day, and I brought up her PDF, and I'm like, oh, that's what that is out there. That is so cool. She really knows her stuff. And her book, she goes around to all these different cemeteries in Texas, and she has a picture of a bird in each one, and she has a little bit about cemetery symbolism in it. It's quite a great book. I really highly recommend it. It should be, if you love cemeteries, it should be in your library.
Well, I come back and from doing your adventures around the world, and
I'm working on a book about all the cemeteries that I'm seeing around the world. So around the world in 80 graves is what I'm calling it so far. It'll be more than 80 graves. I know, it just seems like a fun. I'm a sucker for those pun titles, because I got 6 feet under Texas. So I know that it starts with a pun, and then I go from there.
Yeah,
it's awesome. Well, thank you again, Tui, for
you
joining us.
Very much.
This was awesome.
I'll share this with my newsletter, shocker, and
yay!
And I hope to see you guys in Jefferson sometime.
Yes, definitely.
It'd be really fun. Maybe
we're there
to the cemetery. You guys can show me around the Jefferson.
We'll run into you one way or another.
Definitely. Thank you.
Again, thank you so much for coming on.
And thanks to everybody watching now and later, whenever anybody might be watching. So thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. That'll probably
thanks,
happen
you
for
guys.
Facebook. Yes.
Yeah. We appreciate you guys listening in, commenting. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave, more comments. This video will be posted on YouTube and Facebook, so for replay and everything. So, but yeah, thanks, you guys. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Oh, and Susan said this has been great.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to say goodbye. Thanks again.
Goodbye, everybody. This was great.
We'll
see y'all on the next one.
Thank you, Tui.
Thank you, Tui, again.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, you guys.
Good night.
Bye, everybody.